In this video, we'll take a look at the settings in the Meshing Tools window for Kohera3D Mesh. So I've selected this piece of equipment here. And what I'd like to do now is switch my selection visibility to selected so that I can just see the equipment piece. So let's go over to Models and click on Meshing Tools. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new mesh set. And then I will give this a name and we'll just call it Equipment 1. So once you've done that, press the Tab key on your keyboard and the name here changes to Equipment 1. Generate would be to generate a mesh. Let's go ahead and hide the scans here for a moment so we can see the mesh. And then if you want to remove it, click Remove. So I'm going to go ahead and create that mesh set once more. And you can have several in your list here that you can work with. Next is Mesh Set Color. So we'll check that box and this changes to white. And you can change your color. For example, if you want blue. Create textures. So right here on this portion underneath the piece of equipment, we can see a label here for this piece of equipment. So if I uncheck Create Textures, and then we'll regenerate this mesh, that label is now gone. So the textures are no longer mapped on top of the mesh. So let's go ahead and change that and click Generate to regenerate the mesh. Next, I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the color here so we can see each individual mesh for each of the scans that we have dropped into the scene window. If you wish to change one of their colors, you can click on the color swatch. For example, let's make that blue. And now that has changed to blue. To clear a mesh, for example, let's say we don't want this blue piece. Let's say it's not needed. To clear the meshes, what we'll do is go ahead and check this box to uncheck everything. And then we'll check the one we want to clear and click Clear Meshes. And that has now disappeared. Let's go ahead and regenerate. And we'll do that by clicking of what we want included in that mesh. So we can see it has come back. Let's click everything and let's adjust the subsample. So subsample is a setting that says how many points do we want to use. For example, let's turn the scans back on and let's hide the mesh. And now we're just looking at the points. If I go over to the visibility settings for the subsample, let's say we put in something like 15 and click Apply, we now have less points. So if we change this subsample number here, less points will be used to create the mesh, which will also result in less vertices, faces, polys for that mesh. So let's change the display back to 4. Let's turn our meshes back on and let's go ahead and hide the scans. And let's look at adjusting the subsample for the meshes here. So if I went to a subsample of 1, that is going to be all points. So let's click Set and then regenerate that mesh. And you'll notice we have a much higher number here for each of these scans. And you can even see some detail in the bolts here. Let's change it to something like a 15, where we'll use less points, and take note of these numbers. Once we click generate, see they're much lower, and we have a much coarser mesh, much less detail. But this also results in a smaller file size. So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve in the end. So it's good to find kind of a nice balance and mess with the settings and find out what works for what you're trying to achieve here. You can change the subsample for individual meshes. So for example, we can make this one a 1x1 and then just click generate. So we can see the number here. Let's say we chose 20 and then click generate. Now it's dropped to 2966, and that will be a smaller file. So once you're finished, choose a destination folder and then go ahead and export that file. And you can choose to combine these scans into a single OBJ or individual OBJs, one for each scan that is included in your mesh set. And then obviously the units, and you can choose the up axes as either Z or Y.